This one's for Roy Lonely.
Oh, nice t-shirt.
Yeah. I don't know where I found it. Just was riding through Brunswick and someone threw it out of a window. I'm sitting in my shed, which is pretty well my social entertainment for most of the last 18 months for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Somewhere in here is the other t-shirt. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it a black t-shirt or a white t-shirt?
It's a white one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I got it years ago. I don't remember. It was about the same time as the album was put out.
Yeah, because I think we even did singlets. My sister reckons she's got like a singlet with like frilly lace kind of around the. I'm like, really? And yeah, a few people reckon they've got the t-shirts, but they're like they're dishwashing rags now,
Yeah, I remember. I got that t-shirt, and I think my wife said, "You can't wear that in the house."
Rock and roll.
Yeah. So it was so it sat in the cupboard for a while, and I wore it occasionally out in cover of darkness. But
well, I've got the uncensored version tattooed on my arm. And that continues to upset and annoy so many people. It's just like, mission accomplished.
What's punk rock if you can't upset and annoy people?
Yeah, I always say if sexual imagery upsets you, just think of it as that, and that's you'll be more. You know what they say? People are less shocked by violence than they are by sex. So just think of it as that.
That's interesting. I think sometimes people think, sometimes people say it's quite fairly true that it's easier to shock people now with things that weren't so shocking a while ago. But it's
maybe, yeah.
But or at least you can offend people quicker now, but you can shock people less. So stuff that.
That's it. People are more. Yeah, that's it. Well, the weird thing is though that I and the rest of the rest of the band, but I actually didn't think it was going to be that shocking. I found this collage or this drawing, and I was like, oh, this is exactly rock and roll to me. Like, this is just perfect, encapsulates rock and roll perfectly to me. And so I guess that just says more about me than, because I really was like, really, do people really give a shit about stuff like that? Like, is that offensive? I sort of knew that a certain part of it would be offensive. So I did know that. So I was like, I'll cover that up. We'll do something. We'll put a guitar there in front of the penetration. But of course, everyone with their, paging Dr. Freud didn't really look at it and just went, oh my God, that's even dirtier than, than if I hadn't have done that. And then I looked at it and went, oh, all right. I never even thought that. So, maybe I've got a cleaner mind than everyone else,
Is it in Spinal Tap when they're talking about the Smell the Glove cover and they're saying it's sexist, and Nigel Tuffman says, what's wrong with sexy? No, not sexy.
What's wrong with being sexy? They've all got cold sores.
So look, in terms of the Swede stuff, I just thought run through I don't know, just sort of a bit of a history of and highlights and stuff. what did you and Cal grow up listening to in rural regional Tasmania?
I remember Cal got a CD Walkman, hot off somebody's shelf. He somehow got this CD Walkman, and the first CD that he ever had was Creedence Clearwater Revival, best of or whatever, and we listened to that like sitting on the lounge room floor through this, headphones to the CD Walkman. And then I think he got the best of Jimi Hendrix. He got the best of Bob Dylan. We were basketball players, so someone showed him this song by the Red Hot Chili Peppers called Magic Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
And I think around that time we were sort of getting into sort of hip hop. We were sort of into like Run DMC and Public Enemy, Digital Underground, NWA. There's always a bit of NWA and who was that other band that were really dirty, but they were Two Live Crew.
Oh,
They weren't quite as good. But them sort of things were sort of floating around like Rodney Roode tapes and stuff. It was just sort of the naughty value of it, the swearing. But then stuff like NWA's Straight Outta Compton was actually really a fantastic record. It's actually got really good music on it, as well as really good rapping and lots of profanity or whatever. So I think we started sort of going from this sort of hip hop stuff, like with that Chili Pepper stuff. It was like, I guess this is sort of like rapping with sort of like punk sort of guitars. And then, of course, our dad introduced us to the Blues Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So we heard a bit of like John Lee Hooker and James Brown, Aretha Franklin, and all that artists that were on that. And then we sort of went more into the blues. Like I got right into Bob Dylan from that CD. And I remember Cal eventually finding Dad's records, the old record player that I used to actually plug my guitar into, like pure, huge valve speakers, straight in. People, down the street would be like, "Yeah, we heard you playing your guitar last night, man." But yeah, Cal inherited all of Dad's records, and Dad had lots of Animals, Stones, Jimmy Reed, had some blues stuff. So I think we sort of got, that was sort of how we sort of got into black, into rock and roll, was sort of through hip hop and then into rock and roll, perhaps then into sort of blues music. But yeah, it's funny because a lot of people who talk about bands like Midnight Oil or Weddings, Parties, Anything, all these sort of Australian bands, it's like, yeah, well, I don't know if it was our age or just being sort of where we were in Tassie, but they weren't sort of bands that we were sort of aware of.
Mm.
And, like in high school, me and my best friend, there was one other guy that were really into the Stones. It just wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't sort of at all popular kind of music. But, I remember seeing kids with the AC/DC, a lot of kids with AC/DC T-shirts on in high school.
Yeah.
And I used to always go like, these bogans, and then eventually you get into it. Eventually you go, oh, wait, this is actually way better than all this other rock and roll stuff. This is actually the stuff. Yeah.
So when did you when did you first form a band? Was it with Cal?
Yeah, I sort of had bands in college. We had this band called Stereophonic, which we named the afternoon of the gig or whatever, just by seeing that written on the label of a record in the guy's bedroom that we were practicing. And we being in Burnie, Tasmania, we opened for 3 black metal bands. And we were kind of doing like Ramonesy kind of versions of like the Who and Yummy Yummy and stuff like that to these 4 of these sort of metal guys. But eventually me and Cal lived in Hobart and we were writing songs. We were living together, we were writing songs. We got this band together called the Bleeding Noses. But we could just never find drummers. We, at one point we'd have like 4 or 5 of us all playing guitar and a mate playing bass, but we could never find drummers. And we eventually had a mate who was a really good singer, a metal singer, used to sing with Psychroptic, and he was a good mate of ours, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll drum with you." You know, like this metal singer drumming with us. Eventually, we were like, "Well, we can't really get gigs in Hobart, so we'll move to Melbourne." But we continued to struggle to find sort of rock and roll drummers. There were rock and roll drummers out there, but they were always working in multiple bands.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that, but because we came from it from a sort of a old blues kind of or, you know, like the Stones and stuff, it was still rare to find people that might have that same kind of rhythm. The rock and roll, like we liked it fast and heavy, but we still liked it to swing like rock and roll. That was always the problem, trying to find drummers who wouldn't put in that extra little beat that would make it a bit heavier, but actually would stop it from swinging, really. You know?
Yeah, that's
so we were like, we thought we'd have more chance of finding that in Melbourne. But funnily enough, we actually ended up finding it with 2 Tasmanian drummers who we didn't even really know in Tassie, but ended up being Tasmanian drummers when we finally found it. Yeah.
So when did you move across? Was it
2000? Midway, I think Cow came over like 2000. I came over a bit later, midway through 2000. Yeah, and
So when did you form the Swedish magazines?
We lived in St Kilda. We had a mate who lived in St Kilda, and everyone sort of was a bit of a halfway house, and all these Tasmanians used to come through his house, through his flat. So we lived in St Kilda for a year, and then Cow, and we couldn't find anyone. We auditioned a lot of drummers and sort of couldn't find anyone. And then Cow met this girl, went to Glasgow for a year. So I was just over here. I was like, well, I'll keep looking then, I guess. And I'd do anything. Like I'd sort of answer ads for other bands, for other instruments, and just go pretend I was a drummer, just sort of have a sniff around and see if I could. It's really hard to meet anyone. It takes at least a few years before you really start meeting anyone. And luckily, I did this with this one guy, and he was looking for a guitarist or something. And he sort of worked out that I was actually a songwriter looking to start my own band. And so I went home, whatever, and then later in the afternoon, I got a call from Anton Ruddick, who became the lead guitarist in the Swedes. And he rang me and he said, I just had this audition for this guy, and it didn't really work out, but he told me that my style might be more suited to your style. And I said, oh, cool. And he said, I'll just warn you, apparently we look very similar. And I was like, what? Eventually Anton, rocked up and, he's got long red hair. And I think we wrote Ball Bag Boogie the first night we met. So we were ready to go. So
Behind me, who makes me around?
You did that EP. I can't find the copy of that EP. It's somewhere in my very poorly organised CD collection. But and that's
you've still got the CDs.
Yeah. There's.
I still do.
Yeah.
I think people who think that CDs are sort of gone by the wayside, it's just like, oh God, remember vinyl? You know, people forget so quickly. They're like, nah, back them CDs. But yeah, we did the EP first, and then the album was basically just another, 5 songs to make it 4 albums, but basically the EP plus some more songs, which was kind of what Eat More Baby meant. It was just, here's some more baby.
Yeah, I found that one. See, I found that one with the offensive cover.
The offensive cover, yeah.
But the EP that, because that's the first one of yours that I heard. I think through Brett and I really enjoyed that. I remember going to see you guys one night, a Monday night residency down at the Toe. It would have been about 2004, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We did I think it was like a Tuesday night or something.
Yeah,
we did a month of them, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so what's the story of, I remember you telling me the story of Girl from the Tote, but it was late one night, possibly at the corner, and I cannot remember the detail of it at all. In fact, I can't even remember any specific...
Well, it's basically the lyrics are pretty much spot on to the experience. And so as a girl, we actually used to drink, me and Anton lived on Wellington Street. And so we drink a lot at the Tote, which there was a few other bands that used to as well around the time. Mustang used to always be in there, and as the Tote was a really good mix of different sort of people. And yeah, there was a girl that I'd never spoken to, but she was in there quite a lot. And one night, I think we go Tuesdays because there was a happy hour, and then we'd go up to the Rainbow and see Ash Naylor. He had like a little residency at the Rainbow Hotel, which I eventually took over from him. And that actually led to my sort of first solo album, because you'd go up there and play sort of acoustic stuff and different sort of thing than the Swedes. But this one night I said to this girl, oh, do you want to come back to I'm sort of out of money, but I've got like some vodka at home. And it's just like 2 blocks down the road. And she just started like laying into me and started going like, who are you? Like, you've never spoken to me before, all this sort of stuff. And Anton had this riff that was, Girl from the Tote's basically shot down in flames by AC/DC. It's very similar. So yeah, I just sort of wrote this lyric to it that was sort of, this funny sort of lyric, and then just try to scream it like Bon Scott. But funnily enough, one of these other guys actually picked that girl up that night. And he said to me, as Van, she was an absolute nightmare. He goes, he reckons he had like 2 or 3 weeks with her, and she like wrecked his house and like cut all the wires of his. He goes, you have no idea the bullet that you avoided. And I was like, well, I got a song out of it. So.
also had some pretty good early champions. I remember Kim Salmon waxing lyrical about you when I interviewed him around 2003 or something like that. So there was a few people you must have impressed early on.
Yeah, we were absolutely amazed. I mean, Kim Salmon sort of said to me, "Oh, I didn't think you'd sort of like the stuff that he did," and I was like, "Oh no, we're huge fans of his stuff." You know, my brother's massive Kim Salmon fan. I used to love, the sort of like the business. Remember the business after the Surrealists?
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's got to do with sort of what age stuff sort of comes in at you. You sort of get into certain stuff and you've missed other stuff, but you'll eventually sort of get back. You go backwards. Eventually. But and I remember doing a gig with Spencer P. Jones, and we did a gig with Spencer at Ding Dong, and he sort of said, the Swedish magazines are this great rock and roll band. This was just after seeing us play once. We had this great night because I'd accidentally eaten all these jalapenos right before we went on stage. I think I walked past someone's table and just grabbed their nachos off their table, like friends of mine, and just like, and then I was on stage going, whoa! And
you're literally on fire.
Laughing. Yeah, I was just like going, wow! Spencer kept bringing me different milk-based drinks, like White Russians and, Baileys, and we're trying to, racking our brains to think of like different milk-based drinks that I could drink. So I was just like, But no, we had some great. I remember doing a gig somewhere, I think in Clifton Hill, at this little place, a Terminus in Clifton Hill. Some genius had the great idea of putting amplifiers, speakers in the ceiling. I don't know if you ever went to that place, but it was so odd because the sound you'd hear something, you'd be like, just really odd sounds that would poke out. But I remember we did a little gig there once, and Richie Ramone, who used to own the Tote, was there, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" And he goes, "I like you guys. Like, why is it so? Why are you so shocked that someone would come and see you?" So yeah, we had some good champions early on for sure. Yeah.
So can you remember the first gig you played?
No, I don't know. I honestly can't remember. I remember doing a gig at, you remember the Laundry in on Johnson Street?
Yeah.
I remember doing a gig there, and it must have been our second or third gig, but I can't remember the first gig. I remember doing the one at the Laundry because we're like lugging all these amps up the stairs. And at the end of the gig, you just sort of paid with like change.
Loose change from the Laundry.
Straight into you're covered in washing powder and just put it straight in the smoke machine. So that's what our payment was for tonight, for a pack of smokes. But I can't remember because Tim Durkin, our drummer now, is a Tassie boy from Burnie, from where me and Cow from. He drummed with us then. And I remember we did a gig out in Warrnambool with Magic Dirt, and Tim, we had a different drum. We had a drummer, Jake Tuck from Warrnambool, but Tim drove us out there. And so Tim was sort of around at the start of the band. And then eventually, I think he sort of said, he was like the best drummer, and he sort of said, "I can do the record for you, but I can't commit to doing the band all the time." So he is on Eat More Baby, and a couple of months before the all this whole lockdown change of existence happened, we'd actually got back together with him, and we'd been rehearsing in Footscray at the Dancing Dog, which is no longer there either, and we were getting together some new stuff because Rubber, had suggested of putting out either putting out the two albums. I think we decided it was probably better just to do one record, a compilation or a best of or whatever. And we were like, well, if they're going to go to all this trouble to put this best of out, the the least we can do is to get together another record. So we'd actually been rehearsing a bit, and it was sounding really good. And then, lockdown, everything ground to a halt.
Hey, so back on the Swedes, like between the first and the second record, you had the lineup change. So, and Anton left, and obviously a different drummer. Where did Anton go? Because I knew he was playing with Salmon around that time as well. But
I think at the end of Eat More Baby, I think we had like a band meeting or something, and I think I didn't for the one time like that I've sort of organised all this stuff and sort of tried to push the whole thing. I actually just was like sort of over it. So I didn't see Anton for a few years, and eventually it was just sort of, like I had other stuff I wanted to do. So I was doing other albums, and then, eventually I was living with Johnny Gibson, who's from Penguin, Tasmania, very close to where me and Tim and Cal are from Burnie on the northwest coast. And he's a great drummer. He's a really great, guitarist and singer and songwriter, but he's a great drummer. And so I think me and Cal and him were living together in Richmond. And we just went, let's do a record, write some songs. And we kind of we had a mate who introduced us to Lockie, the bass player, fantastic. Lachlan Rhymes he's from Canberra originally. Actually, he lives near you, I think, in Northcote, Lockie. But we sort of just wrote a bunch of sort of different sort of songs, a bit more sort of pop punk stuff that suited Johnny's drum. And Johnny's got like a really fast, busy drumming style, but still sort of swings. But yeah, it's got to be quick sort of stuff. And we did another record and did some, played a bunch of shows, and always had the band was always there to sort of play. But then, I sort of do more sort of solo stuff, or then we got the Daisies going and Heartbrokers and Goat Piss Gasoline. I always have like lots of different bands with different songs and just for different gigs, So you can, survive as a musician in Melbourne by playing bars. You have to have a few different sort of things you do just to spread yourself out a bit thinner than just doing the same stuff all the time. So, some of these things it's not that they break up acrimoniously. They just do their thing for a while, then it quietens down and there's room for other things to happen. And then someone says, "Oh, we're having a party. Do you reckon the Swedes can play?" And it'd be like, the band still exists. It's just purely a fun thing, and if we ever want to get together and do some new stuff, we can do that. And that's sort of what started happening with this original band getting back together. It just seemed like everyone was in the mood to do it again. We thought, if Rubber are going to put out this best of, we really should we should follow it up with another album, and we've got these songs. So we're halfway through actually recording this new record.
So look, you've got the launch is scheduled for, what is it, October the 13th?
16th. 16th, yeah. I'm sort of, everyone's just like, well, what's the chances? But I'm sort of like, well, through this whole thing, I've had cancelled or had to reschedule so many gigs, but I have had a few slip through. So it's just, I think it's worth advertising, even if it's not going to happen. The chances that it might happen, it could be the biggest session we've ever had in our lives.
I like the line in, I think it's in the publicity stuff, who remembers pubs? Like, crazy things. Used to go there and mingle with people,
It's like seeing a fox in Brunswick, Like, I saw a band last night in the shadows. I'm sure it was a band.